This meeting is being recorded.
And welcome to another episode of Brothers Arguing Sports. I'm Zob. Across the Zoom is Leva. And today I got to bring up what Jeff Passan had said about Babe Ruth. And quote, Babe Ruth was going against players who worked day jobs in the offseason, who threw 85. If you had Babe Ruth playing baseball right now, he would stink. Passan admitted that a year to train and the proper equipment for today's game, Babe Ruth would be a good player. So, Leva, I'm just going to go first because I got to get this off my chest. This really bothers me. I
understand why. I mean,
well,
besmirching a legend.
That's to bring this point up. On the surface, what he says is correct, right? If you just took Babe Ruth from the 1920s and put him in the 2020s, he would struggle. Guys throw harder today. It's a different game. But if you take any athlete from 100 years ago and you put them in the present, they would struggle. If you go 100 years in the future, you take any athlete, you plop them.
Yeah.
So it's a way to just bash on Babe Ruth. There's no point in saying that.
Controversy.
It's just, exactly, it's creating we know baseball was different. There were no black players, Latino players.
Right.
Guys didn't throw as hard. It's just, everything is different. It's 100 years ago. But you can't compare anybody in history to Babe Ruth. Now, you could compare Ohtani with the pitching hitting, but Ohtani didn't hit the way Babe Ruth hit.
Nobody did. Well, that's the thing. That's the point that I wanted to bring up. I like to compare how he played against his contemporaries. And Babe Ruth was, there was no, the level of performance between Babe Ruth and the second best guy who was his teammate. It was stupefying how good he was as compared to everybody he played around. The man hit more home runs himself than other entire teams.
That's the stat.
So in terms of, how does he play against today's players? Obviously, it'd be different. It's a much different type of athlete. But, there's nobody in the contemporary game of baseball that is at a Babe Ruth level. Not even Ohtani, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. And that's
in terms of how he compares to his peers.
And that's the big problem I find is, you see that a lot on Twitter when people always bash on the past generations. They put the highlights. Look at these guys. But that's just history. You can't judge history through a modern day lens. You can't compare.
Yeah, what's Joe Louis going to do against Mike Tyson? Right.
Exactly. You can't. It's just such a dumb argument to make, dumb point. If you're going to compare players historically, you have to put them in their proper context and then compare. It's the only, and nobody does that. It's so frustrating. And this is just another point. And he's done it before. He when he compared, I got the quote here with Ohtani. He said, let's be abundantly clear about something. Babe Ruth never did anything like what Shohei Ohtani is doing now. No, he was better than Ohtani for his time period. That's just.
He have 1,000 home runs if he didn't pitch for the beginning of his career, probably.
So that's the only that I just had to get off my chest. And I just want it out there for the audience to realize if you're just going to do a straight comparison, just taking someone and putting it just one-on-one in through a modern day lens, you're never going to have a discussion.
You can't. You really can't because it is the classic apples to oranges.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's the classic apples to oranges.
So
how would here's a question for you, Xavier. How would a modern baseball player do swinging a 45-ounce bat?
Exactly.
And playing with a glove that's basically the size of your hand and playing on a field that isn't perfectly manicured with drain grates in the outfield? How would they do in that kind of baseball?
Well,
let's bring it backwards.
I still think the modern day player would do 10 times better because he's just so much bigger in general, bigger, stronger. It's evolution. The modern day athlete is just more evolved than someone from 100 years ago because, the modern day athlete, you put him up against those pitchers, let's be honest, it's going to be slow pitch softball for him because he's 100 years in the future. He's got 100 years of development of just human genetics. So it's a silly argument. Like in basketball, JJ Redick, trashed on Bob Cousy. Yes, you take a point guard in the 1950s who bounces like this, it's a silly, but you bring up a good point too. A lot of the modern athlete is the benefits of modern technology, right?
Modern medicine, nutrition.
Diet, everything. So
if they ate with the, if you want to do this argument, all right, put Shohei Ohtani on the Babe Ruth diet, cases of beer and all. How did he perform on the baseball field every day? And you never know.
And the point is, Passan did admit, he said, listen, if you gave Babe Ruth a year training, he'd be a good player. But I just have a problem with bringing up this premise. And it just creates this whole argument where it's just it's just not only unfair, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. 100 years in. So anyway, just wanted to get that off my chest.
It's just one of those types of articles that it's just infuriating to read. Yep. It's just infuriating to read.
All right, Leva, have a great weekend, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
All right, bye.
See ya.